Hello, I'm Matthew and welcome to Genesis 101, the show where I give you tips and tricks to build worlds that will excite and engage your audiences. Today I want to talk to you about religion. In many fantasy settings, the world is directly influenced by the gods, and religion is often a key feature of those worlds, so it can be pretty important to get it right. And even if you're not world building for a setting with gods just floating around, religion can still be incredibly important, setting the stage for wars and conflicts between various peoples, as well as helping you construct the cultures of the people involved. With that said, there are a couple of things we need to unpick before we begin, so let's get to it. Part 1. What is religion? I don't want this to become a philosophy video, so I'm going to get this done as quickly as possible. There is no academic consensus on what defines a religion because it covers a wide variety of social and cultural practices and beliefs. Seriously, to make a definition of religion work, you would need one that could cover both Buddhism, an organised atheistic spiritual practice, and the Old Norse religion Asatru, a disorganised polytheistic faith. They have very little in common, but would both commonly be called religions, nonetheless. So if the question, what is religion, isn't helpful, maybe it's better to ask, what does religion do? And that is a far easier question to answer. Religion is a tool that unites people into a group and provides a framework for that group to understand the world. This is often, but not always, through following the words and edicts of a god. Now in fantasy, gods are often real and tangible, but they needn't be involved in religion at all. Religion is a form of social, cultural, and political control dressed as the spiritual. Now that isn't a condemnation of religion. Maybe it really does improve the moral character of those who practice it, but it definitely does affect the way the cultures, societies, and legal systems work in countries that are heavily religious. So religion lays out a series of rules and frameworks for their followers to understand the world. That is what it does. So the next question is, how does it get people to obey? The answer being, the same way any other institution does. As Napoleon Bonaparte put it, there are two forces that unite men. Fear and interest. I apologise to the nation of France for that appalling accent. It promises punishments and rewards. In the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, if you are good, you go to heaven, and if you are bad, you go to hell. In the Dharmic religions, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, and Jainism, there is karma and reincarnation. Good actions mean your next life will be better, bad actions mean it will be worse. These are all useful for the religion because it promises cosmic rewards outside of your current life. Which means that the claims aren't verifiable and therefore they're very difficult to argue with. In addition to this, many ancient cultures, and some modern ones, also use religious beliefs to guide lawmaking, so legal punishments for breaking the religious rules also work. So, in brief, religion creates a framework and identity for its followers, laying down rules and ethics, and then promises rewards and threatens punishments in order to enforce those rules. Right. Okay. Philosophy done. Are you still with me? I explain all of this because I feel that understanding what something does and how it does it makes us better able to emulate it. So with that laid out, we will move on to part 2. How to build a religion. This is the meat of the video now. How do we build a realistic and well thought out religion? Now, I need to give credit where it's due to Crusader Kings 3, the religion system of which gave a far clearer way to lay this kind of thing out. I was using a system not unlike this one before the game came out, but it has certainly helped me refine it down, so thanks Paradox? Yeah. So where do we start? What do we begin with? Number 1, we need to understand the category of the religion. This means describing what kind of religion it is in a short phrase. This can be broken down into 2 parts. The first is easy. Is a religion organised or not? Does it have a structured church and an organised clergy? If yes, it's organised. If no, it's unorganised. The second is slightly more complicated, but in effect boils down to what type of religion is it? I normally describe it with a description of how many gods or what is worshipped. In brief, your options are monotheistic, which is belief in a single god, polytheistic, belief in many gods, dualistic, belief in two opposing cosmic forces, fetishistic, the worship of objects with great spiritual significance, ancestor worship, worshipping one's ancestors, atheistic, without worship, and antitheistic, against the spiritual. So if we were to apply this to, for example, Catholicism, we would get organized monotheistic faith. For Hinduism, it would be organized polytheistic faith. For Suamenusko, an old Slavic religion, we would get unorganized polytheistic ancestor worshipping faith. Now don't be afraid to combine elements of these. Some polytheistic religions are quite dualistic, as are some monotheistic ones. God and the Devil, the Aese and the Vane, Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. Apologies if I mispronounced those last two, they're from Zoroastrianism. They're all examples of polytheism and monotheism that can be described as dualistic. It's even possible to have a religion where multiple gods are expressions of a single truth, which you could describe as monopolytheism? Be creative and see what you think works. Next, we have number 2. We define the tenets. No, not the Christopher Nolan movie. Tenets are the core beliefs of a religion. And you can write out as many of these as you like, but I would recommend sticking between 3 and 5. Write it out as a simple 2-sentence paragraph that explains a core belief of the faith. I would recommend that the tenets overlap to some degree, as this will create a religion that feels more complete and holistic. I'll give you an example from a religion that I devised, but never used. The Rose Church. Its tenets are the pursuit of perfection. Each being has the seed of perfection within them. Perfection can be attained by any and all. The perfect is in endless pursuit of greater perfection. The pursuit of desire. The seed of perfection knows how best to grow. This is expressed as desire. The perfect is at peace with their needs and wants and pursues them as they emerge. Finally, pursuit of freedom. The seed of perfection needs not guidance. To pursue perfection, all must be free to follow their path. The perfect respects no authority outside of themselves. These 3 tenets overlap and lay out a clear, understandable process tying them all together. All creatures have a seed of perfection. This seed grows through attaining one's desires. Therefore, people should be free to pursue those desires. Nice, clean, and simple. And these tenets lead into the next bit. Number 3, doctrine. Doctrine represents the religion's stances on certain topics. They can cover a wide variety of things, but my standard list is clergy. What genders are allowed to join the clergy, and are they allowed to live with the general public? Sexuality. What sexualities does the church consider natural? Religious violence. Does the religion approve or disapprove of violence against other religions? Magic. Is magic allowed under this religion? Organization. How is the religion organized? Is it oligarchic, monarchic, electoral, autocephalous? How is the organization run? Now, if your religion is unorganized, you obviously don't need to worry about that one. And function. What is the function of this religion? What does it do? Is it focused on materially helping the communities it is present in? Is it focused on enforcing and creating law? Or is it focused on helping people attain spiritual peace? Now, depending on the setting you're working on and your table, you may want to include some extras or scrap some of the above. But the doctrines of a religion give you a good idea of the culture that the nations under this religion might have. Number 4. Finally, you're going to want to make some sample rituals and celebrations. Rituals are events like communions and weddings, with no fixed date affecting only those involved. Celebrations, on the other hand, are events like Christmas or Eid, which occur on certain days of the year and affect every member of the faith, possibly even those not of the faith but living in the country that is run by it. Now, for these, I like to reflect on the themes of the religion and use them to inform the content of the rituals. I recommend selecting some visual symbols based on the themes for them as well. This creates a sense of visual continuity across the faith. You should also make sure that the rituals and celebrations maintain the feel of the religion. The Rose Church, for example, does not have weddings. People can choose to live together and start a family, and that's all well and good, but they believe that the eye will inevitably wander, and to deny that desire would be to deny the second tenet, the pursuit of desire. If your religion is heavily punitive, then many of its rituals might be punishments, and its celebrations include public humiliation. Ensure that the themes and style of the religion stick together well. Okay, we're almost at the end of the video now, but there are a few more miscellaneous ideas that I would like to talk about first. Part 3. Miscellaneous religious stuff. Number 1. Syncretism. I find this a really interesting concept, and I'm really hyped to talk about it. Syncretism is basically when religions blur a little bit around the edges to make conversion easier. The Hellenic faith was really good at this. When the Greeks, particularly under Alexander the Great, conquered a region, they would identify the local gods with their gods, and this greatly helped religious conversion. The Romans later went on to copy this technique, which is why the Romans very occasionally had dual temples dedicated to more than one deity. This doesn't only happen to gods. I discovered while researching for my video on fantasy horror that Haitian voodoo deities are often syncretized with Catholic saints. Baron Samedi is probably the most well-known of the lower, but the Catholic Church syncretized him with Catholic Saint Martin de Porres. Pachamama, one of the key deities in the Inca pantheon, is now heavily associated with the Virgin Mary, and there are many other examples of this, particularly between the Dharmic religions of India, where the Buddha is in some sects considered an avatar of the god Vishnu. Including some degree of syncretism in your setting can really make your world feel that little bit more lived in. It provides that sense of cultural exchange that comes from trade and conquest, colonization and immigration, the things that make a world come alive. Number 2. Schisms. These are all really bad words to say when you have a lisp. So schisms are what happens when a religion starts disagreeing with itself. Most major religions have had 1 or 2 schisms in their time. Hell, Christianity has had 3 or 4 major schisms? The most notable being the schisms between Judaism and Christianity, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, and Protestantism and Catholicism. Islam has also had schisms in its time, the most well-known being the schism between the Sunni and the Shia, but also the many other sects of Islam splitting off as well, including the Sufi, Ibadi, and the Qajarite. A schism is almost inevitable in organised religions, where gods cannot be directly reached for comment, because all humans can do is interpret the text, and since they carry their own baggage to the text, they walk away with different interpretations. A couple hundred years of this, and unless your religion is super into killing schismatics, or has an unusually clear holy text, you will have schisms on your hand. This is nice for you, as it can provide some variety to your religions without a massive deal of extra work, as it may be as simple as changing one of the tenets, and it can provide motivations for conflicts throughout the setting's history. And finally, church and state. We often think, living in the largely secular 21st century, that kings and councils governed, and priests and churches preached. But for a very long time in our world, that simply wasn't the case. Religious leaders often worked very closely with monarchs, on many occasions serving as tax collectors, particularly here in Europe. In other places, such as the Middle East, the line between governmental and spiritual leaders were often very blurred. The caliphs of the Abbasid and Umayyad caliphates were simultaneously emperors and head of the faith, as was the Pope as king of the Papal States. This can have various consequences. In the D&D campaign I'm running at the minute, the party have just uncovered a brewing civil war caused by the monarch taking powers back from the Church. In Renaissance Britain, the Church of England was founded because the monarch wanted greater control of the Church's wealth in England, and obviously to be allowed to grant himself a divorce. Having a more complex relationship between religions and the state they are active in is great for setting up political intrigue, determining the views of local nobility, and determining to what degree religion informs law. Okay, and that is that. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please help me escape my day job by liking, sharing and subscribing. I've tried really hard not to offend anyone in this video, but if I did, I'm really sorry. Religion is a touchy subject, and while I've read a lot about various religions, I'm not necessarily overly familiar with the faiths themselves, so I've tried to mainly stick to Islam and Christianity, which are the two I feel more knowledgeable on, but if I've said anything ignorant, feel free to correct me in the comments below, or using the email address linked on my channel page. I'm also sorry if I sound a little nasally today. I'm recording this while self-isolating potential COVID-19, so I'm a bit coldy. I also can't feel my tongue very well, so that's fun. I need to thank Willem Stormlaw and Mida Stonebrow for reading through the script beforehand. They were great help in terms of helping me refine the way it was written. I think that's everything. So until next time, I've been Matthew, and you've been watching Genesis 101. Goodbye.